This is Loren Schoenberg coming to you in March 2021, and it's my great pleasure to share this January 14th, 1990 radio broadcast. Actually, it's an excerpt of a long show that day devoted to the music of Tommy Flanagan. Most of the show was listening to his recordings under his own name, his songs and his trios and solo recordings. I'd run into him a few days earlier in a nightclub and mentioned I was doing the show, and lo and behold, he showed up at the radio station and wanted to hang and let me pick the records. And he was so patient with me. When I listened to the questions and the conversation now, he insisted I call him Tommy on the air. We talked about that. But still, if I could do it now, it would be a different interview. But that's a different story. It's not so much about me, of course. It's about Tommy Flanagan, and he comes across loud and clear. The way he played was the way he talked, was the kind of person that he was, gentle and deep. I hope you enjoy this. For those of us who were lucky enough to be in a world with Tommy Flanagan in it, who knew him, does it bring him back? And I know there's a lot of musicians who may hear this, especially the pianists, and listening to his voice, does it bring him back just 100%? Of course, he had that great trio in his later years with Kenny Washington and Peter Washington, who accompanied him so beautifully. It was a kind of a magical time. Going to hear Tommy Flanagan with his trio was always like going to see a great play or a great movie. It wasn't song after song as much of it was a really well thought out and programmed concert. And anyway, let's get to the interview and the music. And thank you for listening to this. And here's to Tommy Flanagan. His music will live forever.
And Tommy, I'd like to welcome you back up to KCR.
Hey, Loren.
How you doing?
Very good.
Okay. Thanks for coming up today to help us pick some of the records, because as you can attest to, we have so many records up here today. I know I'm going to leave some great ones out.
I had no idea. There was
I had no idea.
So many.
Yeah. What I'd like to do before we get to the interview per se is just go back and announce the records we heard. And as we do, maybe I could just ask you about your association with each of these great tenormen. And, of course, we just heard you with Dexter Gordon. When did you first get to know Dexter? And
well, contrary to the belief that's written in a lot of history books, I didn't first have my first gig with Dexter in 1945. I would have been still in high school,
right.
According to when I was born and all that. And no, I really actually met Dexter in, I believe, in the 60s here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
In Birdland, I think. And,
yeah.
He was either on his way to Europe or back, or in one of those transition periods. But I've certainly known him for a long time and knew about him much longer, because he started at a very early age. I saw him with Lionel Hampton's big band in the 40s. It must have been.
Yeah. I think he was in the Hamps band in 1941, 42, and 43. Yeah.
Well, I didn't. Maybe I did see him one of those early years.
Yeah. Was that when you were still in Detroit and he came through in the band?
Yeah. He was in the band. I forget the other tenor player.
Illinois Jacquette?
Maybe it was Illinois. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Your association with Dexter Gordon has gone right up to the present, because you did a quartet gig with him up in Connecticut.
Up in Stanford.
Yeah.
About a year ago.
Yeah. Well, we heard Tommy Flanagan with Dexter Gordon. Any memories of this session in particular? This was done for Prestige. This is the one where you did the Christmas song, which is such a beautiful rendition.
And it was in July, right? Christmas in July. Yeah, it was.
No, that's a sleigh ride.
A sleigh
ride in July. Yeah.
Anyway, it was. I remember it was. Yeah. Right, I had some time off. I was still working with, what year is this?
1970.
Yeah, right. So I was off, a break in the schedule.
Yeah.
And that's when that happened. It's hard to get in the spirit of Christmas, though, in July.
July. Well, maybe they turned the air conditioner up. We followed that with Curtis Fuller record called Bluesette, Al Harewood on drums, Jimmy Garrison on bass, of course Tommy Flanagan on piano, Curtis Fuller on trombone, and Benny Golson on the tenor saxophone. And this was recorded in May 1959 for Savoy Records, and we heard a beautiful old tune, Love Your Magic Spell is Everywhere. And this was from 1959. Could you tell us about Benny Golson and your friendship with him?
Oh, I've known Benny for, I guess, since the Jazz Messenger days when he was a member with, I guess, Lee Morgan and Curtis. And we were recording about that time, and there was a group of composers and arrangers that were really close, had almost like a collective. You know, it was Horace Silver and Gigi Grice, Benny Golson. They just pooled a lot of music together, and I think McIntosh, and that's when I got to meet all these fine young writers, and I got to know a lot of their music. But I've been knowing him since I arrived in New York, I guess, or early after, late 50s.
That's from an album reissued under Curtis Fuller's name, and it's called Bluesette. And again, we heard Love Your Magic Spell is Everywhere, and that was Tommy Flanagan.
It's a funny thing, I remember doing dates with Benny and Curtis, but I didn't remember that rhythm section being Jimmy Garrison.
Yeah.
Or whoever the drummer was.
Al Harewood. That's one of the great pleasures of doing this show, outside of listening to the great piano playing all the time, is the phenomenal combinations of rhythm sections. I mean, there's one over here with, you with Oscar Pettiford and Shadow Wilson, and there's another one with Oscar Pettiford and Elvin, and all these combinations, and it's really magical. I mean, how was it back in the 50s when you're doing all this freelance work and recording and club work? Most of the rhythm sections that you wound up in the studio with, had you actually done gigs with most of these guys at one point, or were many of the meetings of the rhythm sections first time in the studio?
A lot of times it was first time would be in the studio, and a lot of the horn players also would be a first time meeting, or maybe the only time you would ever play with on some of these groups would be in a studio. And it was, I think you played something earlier that it'd be hard to conceive that I would be on a date with Buck Clayton and Pee Wee Russell, but I remember them, and they were kind of memorable dates, after you think back and listen back, years later.
Yeah. But most of these rhythm sections, I guess, were just assembled for the date, so that makes it even all the more amazing how greatly cohesive they all are, really. So we had you with Jimmy Garrison and Al Harewood on that record. We followed that with an album that paired you with gentlemen who you did record a bit with, George DeVivier on the bass and Charlie Persip on the drums. And that was with Bud Johnson's quintet from the early 60s, from 1960. Bud on the tenor, his brother Keg Johnson on trombone, and of course Tommy Flanagan. From Let's Swing, the Bud Johnson Quintet, and we heard a great version of Falling in Love with Love, which had that long meter in there.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that date. Because, I don't know, Bud he was one of my favorite, musician and tenor player, reed players. He was just wonderful.
Yeah. What was it about Bud that
I like the way he used to, he wrote so many things that were just like standard things, but he had a way of arranging them that would, bring him out of the ordinary. Just, you say, well, what can he do with a tune like this? And you'd end up really you want to play it and put it in your repertoire, to be one of your arrangements that you would play. He was a great transcriber too. I never heard anybody could take things when he took off that Queer Notions from Fletcher Henry, Coleman Hawkins piece. I couldn't believe it. He did that for one of those Lincoln Center tributes to Coleman Hawkins. Yeah. I didn't think he could do all that. The close harmony and things.
Yeah. Over the years, did you get to work with Bud much? Actually, on gigs and things?
I did some gigs with Bud, not a lot, but we did. I had an association with Bud through the years. Maybe we would play maybe a lot at one period, and then certainly that would lead up to a recording, and then we had a good relationship through the years.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I did with a lot of tenor saxophonists.
Yes, well, as we see here, all these ones you recorded with, and that leads me to, actually I'm going to finish the identification of the records because then I'll get carried away with questions and I'll forget to mention the last one we heard, which was you with Gene Ammons, and we heard something from a Prestige album recorded in 1967, Boss tenor Gene Ammons with Ray Barretto on conga, Art Taylor drums, Doug Watkins on bass. I think it must have been before then. Yes, that's an earlier recording record because Doug Watkins wasn't around at that point. This was in 1960. Art Taylor, Doug Watkins, Tommy Flanagan, and Gene Ammons on tenor sax, and we heard Close Your Eyes, which you had also recorded with Coleman Hawkins and Milt Jackson a few years earlier.
Uh-huh. I remember that day, too. I think it's probably the quickest record date I ever made.
How was that?
I think we left my apartment about noon, and I was back in my apartment at 3 o'clock. We recorded over in Jersey at Van Gelders. He only listened to one thing back, and it was like a half of the ballad that was on the tape.
Right.
And everything felt right to him. And it was, I think he had just come back from, a little stay in Chicago for. Mm-hmm. I don't think he had touched his horn hardly that much, but he came out and did this date. There's a gold record, like Canadian Sunset.
Yeah.
He's fabulous.
Yeah. Boss tenor Gene Ammons. When did you first get to know Gene? Also back in Detroit, or?
Well, I didn't really know him, but I used to go. He used to play dances in Detroit a lot, and I used to go see his band because it was another. I was attracted to these tenor players. They always had great bands, good young players. And, I think it's one of the first times I heard this fabulous drummer out of Chicago, the legendary Ike Day. It was either with Gene's band or somebody came from Chicago with this drummer. It was really electrifying.
Yeah. Ike Day, one of those guys who only made a couple of recordings, but yet anyone who ever heard him always says that he was one of the greats.
Yeah, he's a special kind of talent. Yeah.
We're talking with Tommy Flanagan, and this is Jazz Profiles on WKCR-FM in New York, 89.9 on your FM dial. It's 4:43, and this is part 2 of Jazz Profiles on Tommy, because last week Ted Pankin hosted a marvelous 6-hour show featuring the more recent solo and trio recordings of Tommy Flanagan. And this afternoon, going till 8 this evening, we're focusing on the recordings from the 50s, 60s, and the first part of the 70s, and featuring a lot of great horn players and a lot of great different situations that Tommy got into. Tommy, I'd like to ask you about your playing, like, for instance, with Benny Golson and with Dexter Gordon, with John Coltrane on the one hand, and then also working with Gene Ammons and Hawkins and Ben Webster and the others on the other hand. How did you approach playing with these gentlemen? Was there ever a change of what you had to do to try and fit them, or was what they did so marvelous that it didn't make a difference? I mean, how
did any difference to me?
How did you approach? Yeah,
didn't seem to make any difference to them. I never had any great demands from them on like what to do, but I always felt like I would know what to do with these great instrumentalists. I mean, and they all had such huge sounds, and individual sounds. That, I mean, it was you could get lost, easily behind them. But thank goodness that there's dials, like you can tune me up.
Right. How was it working with them in terms of like making what are known as quartet arrangements, rhythm section arrangements, trying to structure these records? I mean, the introductions are always so beautiful, and there always seems to be a real there's such great pacing and all these things to these performances. When you're in the studio now, let's take this record that's on top of it. For instance, you mentioned Gene Ammons. It was a gold record came out of the session, and yet it was just like a one-take record date. I mean, how would it go down when someone like Gene Ammons would call a tune in the record studio? I mean, would they decide what to do, or would you
usually
make suggestions, or how did it work?
Well, I get together with the rhythm section, the bass player, and we'd figure out something and play it. Maybe if it was agreeable with whoever's playing, usually it was. What are they going to say? Come up with, wait a minute, I got something better than that. Anyway, but I think it caused a lot of early burnout, a lot from all those sessions, doing everything out of your head, all these hundreds of, each session, like making up all these introductions. But it's a good challenge, and I was had enough maybe imagination to come up with something. Certainly the song itself suggests something that you can use for an intro or an ending. So it wasn't as hard as it may seem.
Yeah. What was special? I mean, you already mentioned that these gentlemen, and of course, it wasn't just tenor players you recorded with. You recorded with virtually every instrument. What was it about them that made them so special? You mentioned that they all had their own sound, but let's focus on one association of yours that was very, very special, and that was the one you had with Coleman Hawkins. What was it like playing with Coleman Hawkins for someone who never did?
Well,
can you put it in words, or is that not a fair question?
When I was a kid, when I first heard, I guess Body and Soul was probably the first and very popular jazz instrumentalist record that I heard, and there was so much in it, like so much detail and work that went into it. It's like a masterpiece coming out of. The more I've read about it, I said, "Wow, what a marvelous musician!" Never knowing that I would meet this person and have a chance to play with him. And when I did, when I got to New York, he was a little hard for me to meet at first, but after one recording date that we did together, we had a friendship that lasted until he passed away. It was a great meeting him. Probably one of the finest musicians I ever known, because he knew everything so well. The way he could transpose, look at a piece of sheet music and read any clef, and it was kind of easy during introductions with him, because he could see anything on the page and say, "Well, I'll take this line, I'll take this."
Yeah.
There was this piece from the No Strings album. I think there was a long bass line, it was broken up in tenths. Mm-hmm. And he said, I'll just play that line, like maybe, I think a man that has everything, which he certainly had. And he just said, "Well, I'll take this line here. You play the melody on." And it was, wow, it was a big skip, but that sound, he could play the low note in the middle, the 10th, I played the tonic, the 7th, and the 10th above.
Right.
So, he was really he impressed me a lot, his musicianship.
What was Coleman Hawkins like as a friend? If I might ask you a non-musical question, what was his personality like? How would you describe him to someone who never met him?
He's a very warm person, and he would accept you in, and it was like an open house, when he invited you over. He'd sit down and we have a nice, what a conversationalist. He could talk about a lot of things. He liked to cook. He had good taste, and he had the best spirits around, and he had a good piano. I guess he must have played a little bit himself, but never heard him do that much. Sit down and play a few chords, but he always had, the finest instruments. He had a Steinway, like when the new that new upright that when it came out. That's just to save space. I'm sure if he had a bigger apartment, he would have had a bigger Steinway.
Yeah.
But he did, and his recording equipment was top of the line, and his selections, recordings, was a little strange, you know.
What was that like?
They were all classical.
Really?
He didn't have any jazz records unless the record company would send him some things. But he had like complete Wagnerian operas, and when they went from LPs into cassette, he just upgraded everything as they changed. Yes.
I can kind of hear some of the opera singer in his playing.
Yeah.
In a sense. I mean, it really does sound like that. It's about 10 minutes before the hour, 5 o'clock, and I'm going to run to the records that are a few feet away and grab one. I want to play with Coleman Hawkins right now.
All right.
Could you give us the dates of that gig you're doing at Sweet Basil? Because I want to stress that we're talking about Tommy Flanagan in the 50s and 60s with all these great records. But the important thing is that the Tommy Flanagan Trio is on a break from their international touring, and right now we'll be doing a New York engagement. I gave the wrong personnel before because I guess Kenny will be out of town or something. So could you tell us exactly what's happening?
Well, my next gig will be with the trio. It's at Sweet Basil. It starts on the 23rd of January. It's a 2-week engagement, and I guess that will take us up to about February the whenever it is. So I had a calendar in front of me. Well, anyway, it's George Mraz on bass, and a new personnel change. It's Louis Nash will be on drums.
All right, and that's the Tommy Flanagan Trio at Sweet Basil coming up, and I believe also sometime in February there's going to be another gig, which we will be talking about more then. And but the big news is Tommy Flanagan at Sweet Basil coming up just I guess a week.
It's a 2-week engagement.
It's a 2-week engagement.
It starts on the 23rd of
Right,
January.
so that's 2 weeks almost.
Takes us up to February, something early in,
Yeah.
I don't know.
At a week from Tuesday. That's when it starts. It's 8 minutes before 5 o'clock, and I have in front of me one of my all-time favorite records, and instead of me picking the track, I'm going to give it to Tommy, and he can tell us what track he wants to hear from this. This is At Ease with Coleman Hawkins, with Wendell Marshall on the bass and Oshie Johnson on the drums, and of course Tommy Flanagan on piano with Hawkins. And this is such a beautiful record. Hard to pick one.
Well, it is. So
what would you like to hear?
For you, for me, forevermore.
Ah, yes. All right, of course, that was Coleman Hawkins, and For You, For Me, Forevermore, Tommy Flanagan on piano, and O.C. Johnson on drums, and Wendell Marshall on the bass. And it's just turning 5 p.m., and you're listening to WKCR-FM in New York, 89.9 on your FM dial, coming to you in stereo. Loren Schoenberg here with my guest, Tommy Flanagan, who's up here with us at KCR this afternoon, making this even more of a red-letter day. And I asked you while we were playing the record if O.C. Johnson actually worked in jazz clubs, because I know he was such a busy studio guy. I didn't know whether he actually even had time to be doing gigs.
He sure did. I played gigs with O.C. in a couple of ballrooms, uptown, and it would be his date. It was his band. He'd picked it. Like O.C. was a good arranger too.
I've heard.
Played alto.
I didn't know.
I walked into one of his rehearsals at the old NOLA Studios down on 52nd Street and 7th Avenue,
right
upstairs, and went to one of his rehearsals, and there was somebody didn't show up. O.C. was sitting in the reed section playing the first alto part.
Oh, no.
I mean, his arrangements, he had some tunes called Minor Seventh Heaven and things. And he also sang at this dance. I remember him singing. Had a good voice, like drummers like to sing,
Right.
And he was no exception. In fact, I don't know if I'm right about this, but it seems to me like I saw a recording that O.C. made for Columbia Records called O.C. Can You Sing? And, but nobody else remembers ever seeing it, so I may be wrong about it. It might be a dream.
Maybe it was. That was O.C. Johnson, Wendell Marshall. Now, the trio that backed Coleman Hawkins on all these great records for Impulse, just a year or two later, was yourself with Major Holly and Eddie Locke. Now, was the trio with O.C. and Wendell a working trio behind Hawk, or no?
No, it wasn't. No.
Okay. At the time that record session was made, was your work with Hawk pretty much on a pickup nature? When he'd have a gig, he'd call you for it, or were you working steady with him at that point?
We did about a year of steady work with I think that group. Not that steady that we were working year round, but I guess maybe we did a couple weeks here in New York. Then maybe we would go to Europe, and we did a couple of weeks in Great Britain, and then come back and maybe go in the studio and do a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't really a full schedule of playing with that group. But he seemed to like playing with these guys from Detroit, that bunch, he'd say.
How did it happen? How did the birth of the trio with Major and Eddie come about?
I think probably because they were doing a lot of work at the Metropole. Major was working with... oh, wait a minute. How did it come? We couldn't have there was a bass player that could never finish the job. We had about 5 or 6 different bass players. I guess Major was the strongest one. He was the only one that could finish this job at the Metropole. And I think Locke was there also. And he was doing work with Roy Eldridge.
Roy,
so came in with Roy's suggestion, I guess. I came in with Coleman Hawkins. And I might have suggested that they call him Major. So I don't know how to... But anyway, we worked with that group for a little while, and he seemed to like it.
Yeah. Much has been made about Coleman Hawkins with a quote-unquote harmonic style. They say he had a vertical style, and Les Young had a horizontal style and all that. How do you respond to that, and what was it like comping and being in the middle of all the harmony with someone like Coleman Hawkins? Where did you find yourself with him?
It was comfortable. I thought, I could. He played a lot of music, and certainly knew the chords in and out. But I didn't feel like I was ever in the way, or that he was. I was playing something that would disturbing to him, because he could, when he'd hear an altered chord, he could go right with it, and so it was I think it was better for him, like to have somebody that wouldn't stick, strictly to, just what was written,
right.
but it could, because he certainly didn't, and he liked doing that, taking his liberties with which that's what it's all about,
Yeah.
playing this music.
Well, why don't we go to the album on Impulse called Today and Now, the Coleman Hawkins Quartet, and this is with Tommy Flanagan, Major Holly, Eddie Locke, and Coleman Hawkins on tenor sax, September 9th, 1962. And we'll hear two selections from this record. The first one, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with Anyone Else But Me.
He likes, I don't know, for some reason he likes those old kind of,
Yeah.
almost kind of public domain songs.
PD. Right, that's right, because on this record there's also Go Lil Liza, something he called Swinging Scotch, and Put On Your Old Gray Bonnet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he just wanted to do them once for, I don't know, his for the family or his old sweetheart or somebody.
Yeah. Well, let's hear from this record, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree, and then one of the pièces de résistances from both Tommy and Hawkins' entire discography, something called The Love Song from Apache.
Oh, yeah, he loved that, yeah.
Let's hear it, and then we'll come back and talk to Tommy Flanagan.
Thank you.
And we just heard Coleman Hawkins, one of his masterpieces, Love Song from Apache. And before that, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree with Anyone Else But Me, both from the album Today and Now on Impulse Records. And Hawkins on tenor, Tommy Flanagan piano, and Eddie Locke drums and mallets there on that last track, So Tasteful, and the great Major Holly on the bass from 1962. Tommy Flanagan is here in the studio with us here at KCR. And this is a perfect time to ask you about your approach to the piano and voicings and things. And I mean, I've long had this feeling. I mean, not technically. Tell me all your voicings. I meant I've long had a feeling that that the best of for what called concert classical music, whatever you want to call it, the best of it pianistically from the late 19th century into finds its way into some of what you do, and on a recording like that, I mean, it's obvious that what's happening with the piano is not just a piece of music with a bunch of chord changes on it and just standard old voicings and things like that. We're talking about composition and the whole thing. So where did that come into your music?
Well, I've always kind of had a interest in, I guess, like Coleman Hawkins, like in classical music, and listened to it from an early age. Detroit was a great place to hear a lot of good music. Like on your way to school, like early in the morning, you used to wake up, and the wake up music would be some light classical music, something that a child could take in,
Mm-hmm.
And not too heavy, but then the school systems were pretty good in Detroit too, and I don't know, I kind of had a ear out for bigger sounds, like orchestral sounds, and when I was able to figure out a few things myself, and I started putting these things together on piano, and they started sounding like some of the things that I had been hearing, like growing up, and so sure enough, the longer you stay with thinking like that, and then you hear more music, and I was attracted by hearing some of the French Impressionists, and getting music early in studies, like Debussy and a little Ravel, and certainly my first getting real structure in music was from playing some of the Bach early things, those inventions and those things, which leads to more modern approaches to music and harmonies, which eventually, like you hear people like Art Tatum, and when you start listening to the piano literature and the library and what people in jazz are doing, and it certainly is a line between, the serious line between people that play the best of jazz on their instrument and classical music. There's hardly any difference to me. There's nobody that played any more piano than Art Tatum or Bud Powell, and Teddy Wilson, for that matter, to bring it up to what people are, like what they were playing and studying in, like, say, Juilliard, because Teddy taught there to a jazz class, not necessarily jazz. I'm sure he taught like how to just how to get a good touch and sound out of the piano. But this is what I heard all through my life in music growing up. And
how did the actual transformation come from hearing it, and into the keyboard, and then not only taking some piece that you liked and reducing it to a piano version and harmonies, but being able to incorporate it the way you do, like on a recording like that, or indeed on virtually any recording you've ever made, where these little where these beautiful moments occur. Would you take the actual things that you learn from these pieces and consciously adapt them to the voicing of a tune you're playing, or did it just happen?
Well, not consciously,
right.
but you kind of you have to do it quickly. We're in the studio singing a piece of music sometimes for the first time, and so I mean, time is money, as they say in these studios. So you get your thing together real quickly, and it's so you either get the picture of what you want to do real quick and make it as pretty as possible, and it's logical to everyone involved, whoever you're playing with, and whoever's going to listen later.
We played a recording before of you, Bud Johnson and the Brass Giants for Riverside, with Clark Terry, Sweet Edison, Nat Adderley, and Ray Nance, and you share the piano bench on the I should say the gentleman who shared the bench with you on the other session was Jimmy Jones, and Jimmy.
He's another one of those.
Right. Could you talk about him for a moment, just about Jimmy Jones, because I know that he was into Debussy too, because I think he even made a record of Claire de Lune at one point. Could you tell us about him, and did he influence you in that direction, or was it already done by that point?
I certainly listened to him, and he was an influence as far as extending your harmonies on the keyboard to not just sevenths and that just the normal extensions that you just run into anyway, but it gets into the larger, broader scope of harmony, and Jimmy Jones always kind of had that from. It would just perk your ear up. The first time I heard him, I think it was some kind of up-tempo piece, and just in the middle of it, he played these out-of-tempo chord clusters. It sounded like bells coming.
Yeah.
I said, wow, what is, that's beautiful music. And I did hear him in person with a wonderful trio. It was Steph Smith, Jimmy Jones, and it's when John Levy was still playing bass. And wow, Steph Smith with his double stops and triple stops, and Jimmy with the upper. I've never heard, it's really exciting to hear harmonies coming out of like these two people, and it was, which makes you always kind of broadened me. I wanted to delve a little more into like how do you get pretty sounds like this, and you have to just sit down and work with it yourself, and then you have to listen to a person too. And I got a chance to know Jimmy. And I like to. It's probably one of the only reasons I really wanted to accompany a little bit, because I like the way he did it, and he did it so well.
Yeah.
But he once told me, he says, "Don't do it too long, or you'll forget how to play the piano." And he was just about right.
We're talking with Tommy Flanagan, and it's 5:23 here on Jazz Profiles. And we're going to get to some music in just a moment, but I want to ask one more question that came up from that last that last conversation. That was you mentioned about great pianists, and we mentioned and you mentioned Art Tatum and Bud Powell and Teddy Wilson, just to name a few others. And certainly they're big influences on you. And I've even interviewed you up here before, where we've talked about your formative influences. But I'm curious about Bud Powell. We were talking about Jimmy Jones and voicings and chords and things. Now, Bud Powell Was his main influence on you, like in the what I would call the spinning of lines, in the long run of making melodies and things? And was there a side of Bud that was also concerned with those kind of voicings too? This must be a silly question. I don't know.
No, but I don't think Bud was so much bothered about the harmonic aspect of it. Like
right.
as branching out and making it bigger, because he could do that when he played his solo lines, which were, I always think of Bud as being almost like a bird on piano, or something, a Charlie Parker, or an extension of it, because he certainly did things that were revolutionary for his piano playing at that time. But his, when you hear him, I don't think these guys I'm talking about, they had hands that were bigger, and Bud had a small hand, which I guess has something to do with how you extend harmonies. Like you take
then
somebody
you must
like
have huge hands then. In terms of
no, nothing. Just not really. They were normal, but maybe a little. I worked at it. You see. Stretching exercise.
A rat.
But someone like Ellis Larkins has a large hand span, and he uses it to great advantage, and he can get that
colors,
that real orchestral big sound, like and with the touch, there's another unsung hero, the keyboard.
Yes. I heard him last time I heard him in person was at a concert that Ruby Braff did. I think it was the '88 festival, and he did some duets with Ruby. I think they had made some records together years ago.
Yeah.
And just to hear that sound come out, oh my God, it was really a thrill.
Yeah,
he is a hero. As is our guest Tommy Flanagan, and we're going to get right back to some more music. And right now we're going to turn to a handful of the most historic and most reissued record sessions that Tommy is on from the 50s. We'll begin with Miles Davis and Sonny Rollins, Art Taylor, Paul Chambers, and our guest Tommy Flanagan. And I'm sure you know this record well. Could you tell us which track you'd like to hear of the three?
How about Veered Blues?
Veered Blues.
I don't know where it came from. Maybe they'll. Does it say? No, it doesn't.
No.
Who wrote it or anything?
Well, let's listen to it, and then we'll come back and talk with Tommy Flanagan about it. He's on this recording. Miles Davis and Sonny Rollins, our guest Tommy Flanagan, Art Taylor, and Paul Chambers, the Veered Blues. Miles Davis at a very interesting time in his career, early '56, and I'd like to ask Tommy Flanagan to just tell us about how that record day came about and how the grouping came about, because Miles had already recorded with what was to be known as his quintet of those years with Red Garland, Philly Joe, Paul Chambers, and Coltrane, and here he is with you and Sonny Rollins and others. How did that happen in the context of that group already being formed?
Well, I called them all together. So now I got my birthday. It was my birthday, as a matter of fact.
Right.
No, but I don't know. I think it was supposed to have been Kenny Clark's date, actually, and I don't know. He was unavailable, and A.T. had done work with Miles and Sonny, and I was called. I guess I hadn't been in New York that long, and so we struck up a relationship again. You know, Miles and I met everybody in Detroit, maybe about a few years earlier.
Had you played with Miles when he came through and played at the Bluebird?
Yeah,
or those different
the Bluebird.
places?
I played with him there.
Right.
There was some memorable sessions there. Miles and Sonny Stitt, and Miles with Wardell Gray, and several. Miles with Frank Foster. Oh, it's great. That's when Billy Mitchell and Thad Jones, they had the group there.
Right.
With Elvin. It was burning nights every night. I mean, it's really something. But I remember that, and this date was it was a half a date because I think it started snowing like mad, so we didn't want to risk not being able to get home. So we just called it over, called it short, and there wasn't hardly any music for the date. You know, like it was one of those accidental dates, I guess. And you know, like what's that song on there?
That would have been your
Brubeck's "In Your Own Sweet Way."
Yeah.
Miles had pulled it out of his back pocket, just a few. Had sketched down some changes, you know, and an idea for the intro, which was his, and so it's, you know, that's the way that one came about.
That would have been your 26th birthday, right?
26th, right?
Right. That's in March, I believe. So that record date must have been in March. 36 minutes after the hour, 5 o'clock. We just heard the Veered Blues with Tommy Flanagan and Miles Davis, and you mentioned it was one of your first dates upon coming to New York, and that's right, because you made the record called Jazzmen Detroit. in 1955, and then New York we have this session March.
1955. That's not right.
That's not right.
No,
that's
I didn't come to New York till 56. Yeah.
And that's when you made the record with.
I made one with Thad and Billy. That was
right.
before.
Right.
That one called Detroit New York Junction, I think.
Right. Which we have here, but also, of course, this record that I call Jazzman Detroit. This album is with the one that came out now is Kenny Clark Meets the Detroit Jazzmen.
Oh,
right. Okay. We're looking, by the way, I am looking at a discography that Tommy bought a copy that I hope I can Xerox. It was in the Great Swing Journal.
You can have
magazine. Oh, I can have this copy? Hey, thanks.
Sure.
And then comes this session, March 16th, 1956, and then we jump into May, and in May we get a record with Kenny Burrell with Klug. And in June we
that was a good date for Kenny's introducing
Kenny Burrell, and we have a whole bunch of records here with Kenny, including one of mine that's a favorite just because of the rhythm section is you, Kenny, Oscar Pettiford, and Shadow Wilson, which is just thrilling to hear. And I think that's that record, the Detroit New York Junction.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Thad and Billy Mitchell.
Right. Anyway, and then we get to this next record we're about to go to here, June 22nd, 1956, a day that will live in jazz history, because this is the day that they made Sonny Rollins' Saxophone Colossus record. And I know sometimes, jazz writers or DJs or people who ask questions tend to maybe to build things up or romanticize them and say it's one of the great jazz record days, and that day did you know that it was, and all that kind of stuff. And I realized that at the time, I guess it was a record date with Sonny Rollins. It's turned out to have been, in hindsight, one of the great records of all time. Any memories of that date? You've probably been asked about it, I guess, a lot, but any thoughts about that? Any recollections or views of that record date?
That was another one of those fast recording dates. We know the date was coming up, and Doug Watkins we were living in the same small apartment house uptown, and Doug was living a floor above me. I think Max went up and knocked on Doug's door, and and Sonny knocked on my door, and we went and did the date over at Rudy's. Yeah, I think it was still in Hackensack then, but it was. I mean, it's when you look back, I marvel at like this, how well they came out, because you don't have a clue of what's going on, like or what you're going to record or anything. I had no idea that Moore Tot was called, Mac the Knife, or that St. Thomas was, what it was.
Yeah.
But this one I like from there is I like Sonny's his original pieces, and I like that Strode Road, because he has a way of writing these odd tunes with the funny bridge, short bridge. I think it's the 4-bar bridge.
Here it is right now. Our guest Tommy Flanagan with Sonny Rollins, Max Roach, and Doug Watkins. This is the Strode Road from 1956. Strode Road, the original recording with Max Roach, Doug Watkins, Sonny Rollins, and our guest, Tommy Flanagan, who is the focus of this, the second of two jazz profiles. You're listening to WKCR-FM New York, 89.9 on your FM dial, coming to you in stereo. It's 5:46, and we'll be on the air until 8 p.m. tonight. And again, we just heard the original version of Strode Road with Tommy Flanagan and Sonny Rollins. And Tommy, was that record date mostly a one-taker record date, or were there more than one take done at these sessions?
I think that was one take, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Seems like tenor players don't like to play more than one take.
You've had so much recording experience. What's your view as to the belief some people have that that the most spontaneous things happen on the first take, and then after that it's a case of diminishing returns?
It seems that's the case usually.
How do you approach it on your own record days? Will you do like a rehearsal of a tune and then do a real take, where you just like start the tape going? And
I should, because I found out that when you're just running it through, sometimes you're giving away some of your best stuff right there, and then you're trying to remember maybe something good you thought you did while you were before. I think it's good to use that first take, but I always get trapped because I always think I can do something better, or something in there I can hear that's wrong, which is bad about listening to things right away,
At the session,
the session, right?
Yeah.
So you can find so many things wrong,
right.
That you'll never find. Like later on, you say, "Well, that's okay. I can live with it."
A lot of us couldn't imagine anything wrong happening at a Tommy Flanagan record session. But your point's well taken. Sometimes it's better to go back to a record session after you've forgotten all the emotions and all the things that happened, and try and listen to it objectively. But that certainly wasn't necessary in that case, because that's one of the classic records of all time. It's called Saxophone Colossus, and Lord knows it's been reissued many, many, many times, and will undoubtedly always be in print.
Boy, your collection here is really well used.
Well, you see, the next, we've called on three collections here, and my collection, I want to thank Dan Morgenstern, made a whole bunch of rare things, including this little EP, which I have in my hand here with Charlie Shavers, which no one has ever seen before.
No, I certainly haven't.
And the KCR record collection, which is what Tommy's referring to, because this next track, which is from another one of those records that will always be in print, because it's one of the great jazz albums, John Coltrane's Giant Steps records. Our station copy here looks like it was run over by a train or something, because it's actually split apart. It's been played so much and used so much.
That's looks like one of those old, when you go into those stores with used music. Old sheet music.
Yeah, that the cat was
all brown and that's Giant Steps the way it looks now. Almost not that. Really, it's not that old.
And that's a reissue anyway. Well, of course, that means that we are turning to the Giant Steps album with John Coltrane. But before you recorded this, John Coltrane had really already recorded with you with Wilbur Hardin, and also as a member of your date that came out as the Cats on Prestige Records. So this was by no means the first time that you were in the studio with John Coltrane. Could you sketch out your friendship with John Coltrane for us, and just how it led up to Giant Steps?
When I moved to New York, John was living about 2 blocks from me, and I was on 101st Street. He was living on 103rd, and I used to see him, quite frequently in the neighborhood. And then he was when he started working with was it Miles or I think it was when he was working with Monk. Really, was this is when I really got to know him a little, know him better then, as I was checking out Monk as well as Coltrane. We were friends, but when I was go down to the, I think it was a 5 or the half note, no 5 spot, yeah. And he was, he liked, he's another one. He could deal in harmonies. He was really on the piano. He
Trained?
He could find some harmonic devices, of course, from the things that he wrote. Those giant steps, and that whole album was kind of challenging, harmonically. And he liked to, he's very serious about his music, like from when he'd go into something, whether it was composition or just his horn, like he'd really delve into it. When he went into the soprano, I didn't even know about, until he just came out and started playing soprano, and looked like he had thoroughly, like a woodshedded on it before he came out. So it wasn't anything like, what is he doing that for? He said, wow, listen what he's doing, He's really a terrific and thorough musician, and really believes in what he was doing. And we had a good relationship together.
Yeah.
I liked the way he used to learn songs so quickly. He and Sonny Rollins had that quickness about learning pieces. I wrote this one piece. I think you played it earlier. It was on the Cats album. It's called
Minor Mishap, or
no, the other one. Whatever that is.
Eclipsa.
No, not that one. It's Solacium.
Ah, Solacium. Yeah. Here it is. Yes, right in front of me. Right.
Yeah, but it was. It took me a little while to get it together. Man, the first time he ran it down, he was just played it like he had been playing it all the time. So he's really impressed me. Like, it's another wonderful musician.
Mm-hmm. Well, we catch John Coltrane at a fascinating crossroads in his career, because this record was recorded right around the time when he was going to be leaving Miles Davis and start playing with his own quartet and start forming it. And again, this is the record called Giant Steps, which of all the pre-John Coltrane quartet records is the best known and one of the greatest. And our guest, Tommy Flanagan, was the pianist on the session. Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb?
No, it was A.T. Arthur Taylor.
Arthur Taylor.
And, I hear Giant Steps a lot being played, but the one I like on there is a Spiral. That's a real challenging piece. And,
anything you can tell us about it before we hear it, or should we hear it and talk about it after?
Yeah, because it's been so long, I can't really remember. I know it just goes down in half steps or something like that.
Our guest, Tommy Flanagan, with John Coltrane, Spiral, from 1959. As we continue with the music of Tommy Flanagan, we turn now to a gentleman who really had a kind of an academy for jazz players in the 50s. All the great musicians passed through his band, and that's the great J.J. Johnson. And we're going to hear something, I think, from the first record. Now, I have this discography in front of me. I'm pretty sure this is... not the first one.
J and K?
Yeah,
the collaboration, yeah.
Yes. This is called First Place.
First Place.
Yes. This was recorded in April 1957. Max Roach on drums, Paul Chambers bass, Tommy Flanagan on piano, and of course
there must be something before that, because that came out of... we had some days off on a gig in Philadelphia, and we came over to New York to record that.
Because you had already recorded actually about three albums with Wilbur Little and Elvin Jones and Bobby Jaspar, that great band. And we do have those recordings too. But I'd like to start this set with JJ with something called Commutation, which is kind of a version of Confirmation, I believe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this begins with Tommy Flanagan with J.J. Johnson, Max Roach, and Paul Chambers. And from Tommy Flanagan, we heard him with J.J. Johnson. And the first track was called Commutation, which began kind of as a piano feature. And Paul Chambers and Max Roach, also in the rhythm section from 1957, Tommy Flanagan, J.J. Johnson. And as Tommy mentioned before we played it, that happened while the band, I guess, was on a break in a club engagement. And you guys drove into New York and made the date. And then we followed that with Laura by the Working J.J. Johnson Quintet.
That's another fast date. You know, it went down so fast.
Yeah.
We made 2 albums that one afternoon.
In one afternoon?
First Place and Blue Trombone.
Yeah. And we heard Mr. Laura, which was recorded with Nat Adderley on cornet and J.J., Tommy, Wilbur Little, and Albert Tootie Heath. Of course, the band had also had Elvin Jones and Bobby Jaspar, and actually we didn't hear anything from that band. But we did hear you with J.J. Johnson. Could you tell us what it was like working with J.J. Johnson?
Yeah, he was another good arranger and composer. You know, innovative soloist, you know, on his instrument.
Yeah.
And he was good. He was good. Very good leader. You know, like he was straightforward, and he took care of business when he was on the road, and he was good. He was good to work with.
One thing that I noticed going through some of the records, looking for for the piano solos and where they are and all that stuff, on some of the J.J. Johnson records, I really noticed more than many of the other ones that there really seemed to be almost every track is some kind of arrangement. I mean, it's rarely just melody and solos.
Yeah,
and
he was well arranged. Yeah, I mean, he wrote things that were good to play. You know?
Yeah,
and some of his ballads are really beautiful things. You know, Lament and Enigma is one that's not played enough. You know.
Have you had a chance to play with him since he's come back on the jazz scene in the last several years?
No, just on a few all-star things they get together once in a while. But, yeah, he's playing just about like he did before. He's almost at that peak, but he's. You know, I guess that instrument you can't stay away from it that long. Something about the chops or so.
Yeah. That's Tommy Flanagan, and he's been up here now for a couple of hours, and I'd like to thank you for your time on this Sunday afternoon, evening, and shepherd.
Listen, I was
taking us through
happy to be here.
Okay, man. Well,
and I'm glad
an honor to have you.
What KCR is doing for the music and